house is filled with antiques from the Qing dynasty. Music from the old days lingers over a stage. Young royals and a scroll from the imperial palace. An era comes to an end. A city transforms, adapting to new songs. Time leaves its marks on this city. It's midnight. As people throughout the city sleep, this place is brightly lit. Zhonghuan Market is one of the largest aquarium fish markets in northern China. Every Wednesday night, fish lovers and wholesalers from around China gather here. It's now a long-standing tradition. Early on Thursday morning, Shenyang Road, 20 kilometers away, hosts its weekly fair. At this time every week, 75-year-old collector He Zhihua arrives before sunrise. This antique market is born in the years following China's opening up. Over 3 decades, local people come here with priceless antiques to sell for much-needed cash. In Tianjin, knowledgeable buyers can find the treasures of the past. He has a collection that is the envy of some of the most avid collectors. For 30 years, he has shuffled between the flea markets and collected over 1,000 items of clothing from the Qing Dynasty and the Republic of China. High officials' embroidered robes, noble women's cloaks, and wealthy families' ordinary clothes all display the unique flavors of the past.
这都是带补的，都是朝服8品，越小官越不好学，特大的官的衣裳也不好学。咱们这儿的官太多了，存下来的多，这小官的呢买不起。其实到了民国了，减发以后不许再穿清代的服装了。但是这个有一些个年岁大的清朝遗老遗少们，还要保持清代的这个遗风，怎么办呢？ 他有应酬的时候，要不出去宴会啊等等的完事儿，他因为他见面得行礼啊，是吧？他还保持那个意思，怎么办呢？他就做了一个套袖，在这里搁着。遗风脑子里还有，我有应酬的时候，我还得穿上马蹄袖的袍，行礼，行动作物还得有那意思。要是用的时候是这样嘛，哎，不打马蹄袖吗？
It's hard to know who the people are in this old photo from the late Qing dynasty. It's also unknown what happened to them. But these well-dressed young men look ambitious. They couldn't know their fate will change with the downfall of the Qing dynasty. Puyi, the little emperor, knows nothing of the changes taking place outside the Forbidden City. When the emperor abdicates, China's ancient feudal system comes to an end. The flag of the Qing dynasty disappears, replaced by a 5-colored flag representing the unity of 5 ethnic groups. China is the first democratic republic in Asia. A train from Peking to Tianjin is crowded with well-dressed migrants. The new Republic of China provides the Qing emperor with a large amount of money, but Qing officials feel insecure and seek refuge in Tianjin. Not far away from Peking, Tianjin has the concessions of several countries and wharves with ships that sail to different parts of the world. It's more modern than Peking, and life is convenient and comfortable. In the past, Tianjin is a security barrier for the imperial capital. Now it offers a feeling of security for the remnants of the old order. Wang Bao is on the advisory council to the imperial court. He is among those who will fondly remember the old days. Shu Street in Tianjin is a busy shopping street. The fast-growing city of Tianjin contrasts sharply with the decay in the capital. The constitution Wang codifies for the Qing government is now just a scrap of paper for the archives of history. The 5 colored flags on Shu Street tell him that a new age is dawning. A century passes and the street remains busy. With the passage of time, another scroll is unfolded. Today, it's one of the busiest shopping streets in the city. The managers of the Tianjin branch of HSBC got a first-hand look at the impact of the emperor's abdication. The bank's business skyrocketed overnight, and its vault filled with money. The largest transfer from the capital to Tianjin was 1.2 million silver taels. The new depositor was the wealthy Prince Yiquang. Tianjin's foreign concessions were considered the most secure harbor for these well-heeled refugees from the Qing era.
1912年2月，清王朝退位，殉清的王公贵族、遗老遗少，还有旧士文人，他们陆续的都入驻天津，因为北京的政局动荡，天津比较稳定。他们来天津以后呢，就像工商业呀、房地产的各方面投资，形成了天津一个巨大的资金流。这些人入驻天津，对天津城市文化生活有了很深的影响。
Puyi thinks of his father, Jiafeng, as a rather mediocre man. When Jiafeng resigns from the position of Prince Regent, he explains that it is to spend more time with his children. The seal affixed to the title page of Jiafeng's book shows that he prefers a relaxed life. He visits Germany at the age of 18. He's neither overbearing nor servile and acts courteously. he wins wide appreciation. Traveling opens the gate to another world for him. He's fascinated by science, especially astronomy. When a solar eclipse occurs, he observes the event through a piece of dark glass. He fails, however, to predict the future of his dynasty. Young banknote collector Tang Wenchuan is looking for a special type of note. With the abdication of the Qing emperor, this commemorative banknote bearing Jiafang's image becomes a collectible memento of the Qing dynasty. After graduating from college, Tang changes jobs frequently. Over the course of 10 years, he worked as a designer and also started a bar. He learned the traditional craft of making fans from an old master and settled down. He started this fan workshop 5 years ago. A fan carries the aesthetic taste and cultural genes of the Chinese people. For thousands of years, the Chinese people condensed poems, calligraphy, and painting to put them into fans. They represent the continuity of Chinese culture. Tang believes this art form can help him connect to a lost spiritual world. Several months earlier, he came across a vinyl record of Farewell My Concubine, performed by Yang Xiaolo and Mei Lanfang. The story was set 2,000 years ago, and the dramatic play was performed 100 years ago. In Tang's opinion, that tragic farewell not only means the hero loses his love, but it also marks the end of an era. Of all the items in Tang's collection, his chair is the one with the most history. It once belongs to Natong, a grand counselor of the Qing dynasty.
这个椅子原本可能就是纳通的餐厅里边，大概一套得有那么10几把左右，最后可能就落这一张。后来就作为这个单位固定资产了。我这朋友就退休以后啊。 就因为跟这椅子坐了40多年，对他也比较有感情，就做个小纪念吧，跟单位就要来了这把椅子。我拿来之后，这把椅子都光了，快要散了，然后我整个就把它都拆散了，重新修复，重传了一遍。
It's winter in early 1913. Not a good day for moving, but Natong has a ticket to Tianjin. The sound of the wheels grinding against the rails creates a subtle dissonance. As he gazes at the passing scenery, the changing vistas outside seem to mirror the turbulence of the country. He carries a box with a land deed. He is the owner of an acre of land in Tianjin's British concession. Only half of his former residence is left. It sits in the shadow of tall buildings. Like other nobles, he likes to call this private house in Tianjin his residence. Natong is born to a wealthy family and passes the imperial examinations to become an official. His relatives by marriage include Yan Shikai, Prince Zaijian, a Grand Counselor and China's envoy to the U.S. These complex connections bring his family to Tianjin.
现在新觉罗家族、瓜拉氏家族呢、那拉氏家族，很多家族也住在武大的地区。特别是民国之后，这个汉族和满族，也是通婚了，跟过去不太一样了哈，通婚，所以这些官吏来说也实现联姻。
The walls of Prince Zaijian's mansion were higher than those of others. Outsiders couldn't peek inside, and those within couldn't glimpse the world outside. No matter what changes were taking place, Prince Zaijian was unmoved. His father, Yi Kuang, was powerful and enjoyed a successful official career. He was not even 30 when he was appointed as the first minister of the Ministry of Commerce. He traveled widely and visited Britain, France, Belgium, America, and Japan in just 6 months. 20 years later, he was impeached and stepped down. From then on, he was indifferent to political affairs. Zaijian bought this mansion from Xiao Dezhang, the last head eunuch of the Qing dynasty. From its initial design to completion, it took 6 years. Xiao Dezhang spent money freely as he built it. Even the base is costly. He told the workers that the deeper the base is, the greater the reward they will get. Chinese-style colored glaze handrails and delicate furnishings are found throughout the mansion. The handcrafted glass from Belgium is beautiful. Chinese-style patterns of mountains, water, flowers, and birds form a perfect combination. Court etiquette is displayed in many of the details. 18 steps represent the royal family. Xiao Dezhang was not content with 17, so he would have 17.5 steps. Now, many people climb these stairs. Xiao Dezhang rises to power because of Peking opera. As a performer, he stands out from many of the other eunuchs and is particularly appreciated by Empress Dowager Cixi. He doesn't neglect the basic moves, even in his later years. At the age of 80, he still performs some highly complex movements. "92-year-old Wan Wu takes part in opera every week, if her health permits. She is one of the founders of this Peking Opera Lovers Organization. In 1992, she took the title of Top 10 Opera Lover in China. She's a granddaughter of Prince Zaijian, and the mansion was her home for a short time in her early life. 7 decades pass, but she still remembers the private parties held there.
从4岁到天津来，我和我妹妹就住的这间屋子。原来好像我们俩人这床，乍一来时候我是那旧床，那大罗汉床，后来改了2个单寿床。我跟我爷儿俩人，我们俩在这儿，一直到我21岁结婚，才出了这房子。我祖父爱听的呀，就是大嗓儿的谭富英、尚小云，大概最喜欢就是尚老板的，因为从我小时候知道，谭富英来没来我不记得，反正尚小云那会儿一来，我们就偷偷的扒着这个玻璃看，他来了总来拜访我祖父。
Each time famous Peking opera performer Shang Xiaoyun came to Tianjin, he visited the prince. The Qing dynasty no longer existed, yet he still kowtowed to show his respect. He only took a seat when the prince asked him to. As former noblemen chat with famous Peking opera performers, the proper etiquette is observed. It is not demeaning, as they support the performers in this way. The performers still value their reputations, even though they rely on the nobleman's patronage. Zaijian's grandchildren gradually pick up Peking opera as they watch. Sometimes, Jean Wan Wu and her siblings sing in the courtyard as their grandfather listens to them quietly. Their efforts are rewarded with smiles and praise from time to time. The private parties in the prince's mansion are well known in Tianjin. Almost all famous performers like Tan and Shang perform here. Distinguished people come to his house by invitation. Ordinary people also dress up and mingle with them as they watch opera performances. Such social events were popular in the period of the Republic of China and still take place in the prince's mansion today. Classical music is performed on the Peking opera stage. Modern Western art and Eastern art integrate into the lives of people in Tianjin. The artists inspire a revolution in the culture of Tianjin, a local renaissance. Peking opera was popular in the late Qing dynasty and the Republic of China. The change in fortunes and refugees' lifestyle made many people intoxicated with opera. Though of good ancestry, some were rebelling by performing on the stage. They exert a subtle influence on public taste. For noblemen who moved to Tianjin, listening to opera, supporting the performers, and throwing parties were now fashionable. They saw their own fate in the partings and reunions on the stage. Among the parties in Tianjin, those at Zhang Xun's house were the biggest. Zhang spent large amounts of money on them. He gave huge tips to Yang Xiaolo and Mei Lanfang after each performance. The shows they put on cater to his artistic taste. They often performed dramas with the theme of loyalty to the country, reflecting the nobleman's situation. Peking is an engine that produces famous performers, and Tianjin is the proving ground for them. The audiences in Tianjin are the most demanding in China. From noble fan to ordinary folk, they all know the shows well. They evaluate each performer, and their comments are direct and sometimes brutally honest.
天津观众对京剧的理解，这个欣赏力高。你要想成名，成得了，成不了，到天津去挂号。天津观众承认你好，你到哪儿都红。这是这嘛玩意儿？这完了。
Ma Lianliang performed in Tianjin frequently and bought a house there. It's designed by Italian architect Paul Bonetti. The outer wall is made of coarse sulfide bricks. This is known as knot building by the local people. The times change, the stages are different, but the voices remain. The style of Tianjin is still heard in modern bars. The character of Tianjin is reflected by the attitude towards life of each of its residents. The docks of Tianjin are a place for all kinds of people. Boats travel back and forth on the high river. People from different places bring new voices and styles to Tianjin. Since the 1920s, a number of unique folk art forms took shape here. Various art forms like storytelling in Beijing dialect with drum accompaniment and crosstalk were all thriving. Long ago, wealthy families would shun street performances. The preferred performance venues changed. 5 theaters accommodating 1,000 people and 15 stages catered to the wealthy families of Tianjin. Tea houses were popular. At one time, there were as many as 130.
说唱艺术刚传入天津的时候，它是在城乡结合部撂地演出，后来进了茶园，进了剧场，30年代以后呢，开始进入大户人家的堂会，像刘宝全、白云鹏、张寿臣这些名角，他们的名字开始出现在堂会的戏单上了。所以呢，在天津曲艺界就流行着没有君子不养艺人。这就是说呢，寓公和这个大户人家对曲艺发展的提携。
The families of Shu Ke and Ni Chi are among the Manchu people who came to Tianjin over 100 years ago. Shu has a website about Manchu culture and edits a magazine about Manchu culture in Tianjin. He has a collection of over 100 Manchu folk songs. During maternity leave, Ni decides to learn their language. For a century, Manchu culture gradually declines. Its traditions begin to fade during the process of modernization. Young parents don't want their daughters to live in a cultural vacuum.
爸爸，爸爸打招呼，爸爸你好。
你好。
嘿，真乖。
The octagonal drum is a folk music instrument of the Manchu people. Its 8 corners symbolize the 8 banners of the Manchu. They sing songs for their daughter. Shu is the youngest member of a touring company. For many years in the past, such companies put on shows in the capital, popular mostly among the rich and famous. Like many other folk art forms, its audience is declining. Tianjin is home to various art forms. Some of the more representative ones are now symbols of the city. Crosstalk comedy shows in small theaters now bring a great deal of enjoyment to people.
您说说成果。那我也干什么毛病？
爱吃字儿。
哎，这我不明白，怎么还吃字儿啊？
您看啊，往往一句话是4个字儿，拿老天津话一说呢，就改为仨字儿了。仨字儿的变成俩字儿。
派出所，
派所儿，派所儿。
你们家上辈在宫里边有职务吗？
这怎么说话呢？
我听着很耳。
Tianjin is famous for humor. When it comes to laughter, people tend to think of a crosstalk master called Ma Sanli. Though he's gone, his style of self-mockery in the face of suffering constitutes a cultural gene of this city.
天津的这种曲艺精神，它就融入到民间，所以天津人说话特哏儿，就是啊，老是就是能够把一个苦难的问题能够轻松化，能够释怀，所以也导致很多就是比较破落或者走了逆境的一些达官贵人呢，愿意在天津生活，在北京他会受到社会的一个强烈的抵制和报复。一旦你破落了，人家不理你了，你心里很难受。但是到那儿呢，依然能生活的不错，不行卖个镯子，不行家里鼓捣个碗卖出去，他也能够把日子过好。
Ma Wei is a well-known collector. Many items from Tianjin are in his private museum.
保守的估计啊，当年就清末的时候，京城有10万人是这个不工作拿俸禄的。那么清朝政府到后来，清朝的财政支撑不了这件事儿，这些人哪儿去了呢？他在京城混不下去，因为京城的费用也高，所以都奔了天津了。为什么天津就出了那么多文物，就卖了多少年还没卖光呢？就是这些人带过去的。
In the 1980s, people wanted more modern lives. Antiques began to circulate in the marketplace. Articles for amusement, calligraphy works, and paintings went on sale. With his unique insight and shrewd judgment, Ma returned from Tianjin with good purchases, time and time again.
那时候地摊上，你简直不能想象，那地摊上特别漂亮的手镯，那时候谁也不懂，你谁知道那手镯是什么也不知道，那过去都是大户人家的财产啊。那个瓷器摆在地上，那我印象中还是卖宣德的东西。那我喜欢瓷器的时候，觉得宣德的瓷器都是至宝啊，怎么可以在地摊上看见呀？而那时候还没假的。
Today, Ma considers his collection to be a repository of social wealth. During the changes, some people fell on hard times and others gained unexpected windfalls. Aware of their value, in 1922, young Emperor Puyi asks his brother Puja to secretly take top-quality calligraphy, paintings, and ancient books from the imperial palace and store them in Tianjin. This stunning list includes many famous works. 2 years later, Puyi comes to Tianjin and opens up this secret treasure trove. Puyi stimulated the Tianjin antique market. People didn't realize what circulating these treasures in the city means. The large amount of wealth Puyi obtained from these treasures contributed to his mirage-like dream of restoring the Qing dynasty. He believed this was his fate. This painting in the Tianjin Museum is an example of the loss the palace sustains during this period. The 17-meter scroll depicts events during Emperor Qianlong's trip to southern China. Local officials and ordinary people are seen together at the foot of Taiping Mountain in Suzhou, trying to get a look at the emperor. When Puyi unfolded it, he may have unconsciously looked for his ancestor in it. Though he knew the Qing dynasty was over, he never gave up the dream of restoring it.
The last emperor of China, Puyi, who had left the throne when he was still just a little boy, had an interesting and rather strange and sad afterlife in Tianjin. While they were there, Puyi and his close followers, who included people such as the scholar Zheng Xiaoxu, were involved in a lot of activities, including art collection. In fact, the manuscripts and scrolls and other Chinese artifacts that Puyi and his court collected at that time are really a very impressive collection.
Tianjin became an important center for cultural objects. People were flocking to the city, bringing large quantities of valuable art and antiques with them. Many famous collectors were created in this era. Years later, these treasures are brought together in the Tianjin Museum. They reveal that over the course of a century, Tianjin absorbs the art of 5,000 years of Chinese civilization. A legendary age of collecting is underway. The Garden of Serenity was Puyi's residence in Tianjin. It was the former Qing government's Tianjin liaison office. Puyi's life here was filled with various people, including former ministers, scholars, businessmen, and Japanese officials. Puyi's life has always lived under the domination of others. It is never more so than when he ascends the throne and then abdicates. After being driven out of the Forbidden City, his life continues in this way. He never enjoys real freedom. Every morning, a large sedan chair stops in front of his residence. Xiao Dezhang, once the head eunuch in the Forbidden City, gets out and sweeps the courtyard for Puyi. This is how he shows his loyalty to the former Qing Dynasty Court. In 1927, the Northern Expedition Army presses toward the capital. Those who live in the foreign concessions are not at ease. A greater social transformation is about to take place. Puyi heard that Wang Wei drowned himself in a lake. Wang was a former official in the Qing government and a professor at Tsinghua University. He never removed his braid. His suicide note read, "I am 50 years old and awaiting my inevitable hour. Nothing can be worse than this event." Puyi was moved by Wang's note. Did he take his own life because the Qing dynasty was gone, or because of sudden cultural changes? No one can say. Wang's death caused quite a stir. An old man with his hair braided in the old style died in the British concession in Tianjin. Zhonghuan Jun commanded various border provinces during the Qing dynasty. He passed away quietly. Years later, his niece, Eileen Chang, is a famous writer and still revisits his house in her dreams. When Eileen Chang is 4 years old, she recites a poem about the downfall of a dynasty. Zhonghuan Jun weeps. To Puyi, these are just a few trifling incidents. He's seen too much death and violence to be impressed by such small things. Then, news arrives that sends him into a rage. Warlord Sun Dianying plunders the Qing dynasty tombs and humiliates Puyi's ancestors. This causes a great uproar, both at home and abroad. Puyi cried out and drew a cartoon of Sun Dianying's execution. But beyond venting his anger, he could do nothing. In another place, a distant relative of Puyi lived a peaceful life. Time gave Zhonghuan's mansion a special aura. Zhonghuan's home is filled with chiming clocks. He sets all of the clocks to different times, and they chime out one by one, sounding out a sad song about the passage of time. Every day, he rises at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And his servants call out, "The Lord is up." This is repeated by a parrot. Wan Wu is told this parrot is a gift Zhonghuan received when he was abroad on a diplomatic mission. The colorful feathers leave a deep impression on her. In the spacious courtyard, Zhonghuan spent his days with goldfish, grasshoppers, swans, and parrots. He was enjoying himself. He was determined to live away from all the annoyances found on Earth. Over the years, Yi takes his birdcage with him as he goes to work. Now in his 70s, he is retired. Every morning, he's up with the sun and does morning exercises in a nearby park for a get-together with old friends. They believe that only in the shade of the trees at dawn do they see the true nature of the caged birds.
想你开没有在，看你破没有破，好不好的自己找，尤其咱这岁数，就是咱这岁数一看比这个老，都上70万观点了啊。
As the birds sing and the old friends savor the fragrance of flowers, they live a leisurely life. They enjoy themselves as time passes. They're optimistic and open-minded. This city and its people resonate with spirituality. Perhaps in their eyes, a bird's life mirrors the history of a city. People who truly love life enjoy each moment and are happy for what they have. Global events affect foreign concessions in Tianjin. Conspirators face retribution during the war. An assassin talks about the fate traitors operating in Tianjin will face when exposed. Tianjin is caught in turbulent times during the 20th century. Those years of strife are filled with stories that reveal the character of an era.